I found this audition piece the other day. Hold on. It's from this play. They did it back in the Royal Court back in 1975, and then it disappeared. Strangers in the Field, and the Sun has this speech.
At the start of 2021, Russel T Davies' brand new queer series It's a Sin was released, and it was an instant success, showing the lives of gay people during the 1980s AIDS crisis within the UK and how the government refused to act or educate for fear of promoting homosexuality. The show is credited as finally starting a nationwide conversation about HIV. The show broadcast just prior to HIV testing week, and the show created a massive surge in people testing. During 2019's testing week, 8,068 individuals checked their HIV status. This year, that number was beaten in a single day. A pivotal success as the UK moves closer towards the goal of zero HIV transmissions by 2030. Now, activists and campaign groups continue to push on the success of the show to help end the spread of HIV and end the stigma around it. But how can we make sure the momentum doesn't fade away?
I believe in the gay power. I believe in us getting our rights, or else I will not be out there fighting for our rights.
Children who need to be taught to respect traditional moral values are being taught that they have an inalienable right to be gay.
It's really illogical. When you think about it, it's quite illogical to actually say, well, I'm gay and I'm into defending the gay community, but I don't care about anything else. It's ridiculous. It's important that if you're defending communities, that you also defend all communities and not just one.
Episode 3 of It's a Sin introduced us to the character of Donald Bassett, a young aspiring gay actor who forms a relationship with main character Reggie. Bassett was portrayed on screen by Nathaniel J Hall, an artist who is themselves living with HIV.
Hello, my name's Nathaniel Hall and my pronouns are he and him. I'm a theatre maker, a performer, a writer and a HIV activist.
HIV is a virus that damages the cells in your immune system and weakens your ability to fight everyday infections and disease.
I think It's a Sin was such an important story for people to see because we've not actually seen it in this way on British television before. So we're now 40 years into the HIV AIDS epidemic in the Western world, in the UK and America and Western Europe. And we've seen lots of work around HIV come out of America. There's lots of films, there's Philadelphia, Dallas Buyers Club, and even in Europe, films like 120 BPM. But in the UK, we actually haven't had a focused story about HIV. We've had some storylines in soaps, but we've never actually really dealt with the epidemic in this way. So it was really, really long overdue, in my opinion. I think it really struck a chord with people because I think for those people that had lived through that, so friends that I've got who are older than me, gay men particularly, although HIV affects other people as well, this was really raw still for them because we've not had this chance to collectively talk about it or collectively grieve or mourn or even celebrate the lives of people that were lost. So I think for those people particularly it was really, really important. And I think for society, a wider society, I think a lot of people were really shocked that this went on. You have to remember, as the show really expertly shows, this was not like coronavirus in the age of the internet where we can get information really quickly. If you weren't from certain communities in the 1980s and 90s, HIV and AIDS was just this thing that happened over there. And I think what It's a Sin did really, really well is it humanised the epidemic for people and made people realise how awful that and tragic it was for very many people, but again also the joy and the celebration of LGBTQ lives as well. So I think it did all that really expertly. How does life in the series compare to now? I mean, it's incomparable, really. I think the one thing that I would say that is still around is stigma and discrimination. So lots of people living with HIV today will tell you that HIV is not really an illness that affects you that physically, although for some people it still does. It really is the psychological impact of the illness that people have to deal with day to day. So that's the trauma from when you were diagnosed, but also having to move through the world as a person living with HIV and face stigma and face discrimination and negative attitudes towards you, which can be like wading through meat in high heels some days, I think. But I think in terms of health of people living with HIV, it's completely incomparable. So people today, if you're diagnosed quickly, which, you know, if you're getting tested regularly, you should get diagnosed nice and quickly, you'll be put straight onto medication, and the medication is so effective that it will reduce your viral load to undetectable levels. It means you've still got HIV, but it can't be detected in a test. And that actually means now, scientifically proven, we know that you can't pass the virus on to someone else. That's known as undetectable equals untransmittable, or U equals U. So that's incredible for someone like me who's lived with HIV for 18 years to now know that I can confidently have sex without a condom and not pass on HIV, although it doesn't stop other sexually transmitted infections, of course. And then also we have PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is the drug that you can take preemptively that can stop you from getting HIV, which is fantastic, and it's really effective. It's more effective than condoms, actually, statistically, particularly for gay men or men who have sex with men. So, and that's available across the board, England, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland on the NHS. So that's an amazing thing. Not everyone knows about PrEP. I think in the men who have sex with men community, or in the gay community particularly, it's well known and people try to access it. But I think in other communities, people don't really know that much about PrEP or that it's for them. So it's really important that we remind people that PrEP is there. It's an option for them if they want to use it, and it's there. You know, they can go and get it for free on the NHS. So yeah, you know, HIV has just changed drastically since the 1980s. I think the reason why life for people with HIV can be difficult is because attitudes lag far behind, and also because there's a lot of shame and judgment around HIV because of the way people catch it, whether that be through sexual contact or intravenous drug use. So the real task now for people like me, HIV activists, and people fighting this cause, is to bring people around and make them understand that it's a virus. It's no different from the common cold or coronavirus. It just needs to exist. So that's the work that I'm definitely trying to do at the minute.
In 2019, an estimate suggested that there are 105,200 people living with HIV in the UK, and claimed that around 6,600 are undiagnosed, so are unaware that they are HIV positive. Of the 4,139 people diagnosed with HIV in the UK in 2019, 41% were gay men or bisexual men. 1,559 of them were heterosexual people, 37% of which were black African men and women. Stigma continues to prevent people from checking their status across the country, with many heterosexual people assuming they are not at risk. Recently, after 30 years of attempts, there may be a promising advance in the search for a HIV vaccine, as early-stage clinical trial data from the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative and the Scripps Research Institute in California suggests that a new HIV vaccine may hold promise.
What It's a Sin has done really, really well is bring HIV back into the national conversation, and I was really worried when it first came out. I'd seen it before it was broadcast, obviously being in it, and I was worried that it would, like, old myths would resurface, because there's a myth, there's a narrative that HIV is a gay disease. It's not. Over 50% of people live with HIV in the UK are heterosexual. There's all sorts of myths and misconceptions about how you can transmit it, so scenes of people scrubbing cups, or scrubbing themselves in the shower or not wanting to be near someone with HIV worried me a little bit. But what we saw actually is It's a Sin, because it was such a powerful, impactful drama that got people talking. Then we saw all the amazing charities and organisations and activists jump on that conversation, because we've not had people talking about HIV like this since the 1980s. So it was a real opportunity to re-educate people, and the news media as well, were part of that, and getting those messages across, the things about U equals U, about PrEP, about the importance of regular testing. So for me, I've never seen, it's been such an exciting year because I've never seen HIV talked about, so much and in such an amazing way. So I think what it's done is actually it's broken down lots of those myths and those misconceptions. I think it's humanized people living with HIV, again, for people that may just see it as something that happens over there and be quite judgmental. But also as well, we've seen some really amazing practical things like a huge surge in HIV testing. Now, HIV testing week is normally in November every year. It's the third week of November, but it was postponed last year because of coronavirus, and it was moved to February, which was the week that It's a Sin aired. And what we saw was a huge surge in home testing kits being booked through various different sites and services. I know that the service that the Terence Higgins Trust runs, on the first day of testing week, they saw 8,200 tests booked. Now, the previous record on the first day was 2,800. So that just demonstrates to you the power of amazing drama in affecting, social change or, healthcare change. So yeah, I really hope that, people continue with that. They don't just see that they have to do one test. If you're sexually active, you should be getting tested every 6 months to a year for HIV. And that's really important, whether you're gay, straight, cisgendered, trans, non-binary. Everyone should be testing if you're sexually active. And that's the only way that we will eventually, get a grasp on HIV. And the goal now is to end all new transmissions by 2030 in the UK, which is hugely ambitious. But if everyone continues on this trajectory, getting regularly tested, using PrEP or using condoms to protect themselves, then we're well on the way to that, I think. So it's really, really important to get regularly tested for HIV if you're sexually active. Now, in the UK, there are loads of different services across the UK. One of the quickest ways to find out the nearest service to you is to go to nhs.uk, go to the HIV section, and there's a postcode search there. And if you're in England, another good service is freetesting.hiv, and you can put your postcode in there and I'll help you find a postal testing service. Or of course, you can go to your local family planning clinic or sexual health clinic, and they'll be able to do HIV testing there. And lots of GPs also do HIV testing as well. So there's loads of places you can get tested and get the support that you might need. I think it's really important as well to remind everyone that the fight for better healthcare for minority groups and for everyone, and the fight for social justice and equality often gets left to the minorities. So it gets left to LGBTQ people, to black people, it gets left to people like me with HIV to do the fight, and sometimes we can get really, really exhausted, and I think now more than ever the need for allies has never been more important. So I challenge everyone to go away after watching this and find out something new about HIV that you didn't know. Find a reputable source. It's not always my place to do the education. You go out and educate yourself. Pass that information on to someone else, and hopefully we can move towards that 2030 target. And people like me can put our feet up a bit. Ways in which you can do that and support: you could buy my play, which is called First Time, which is an autobiographical story about my life living with HIV, and that's available from my website, www.nathanielj.hall.co.uk, or follow me at Nathaniel J Hall on Instagram and Twitter. Amplify the voices of people living with HIV and across the board, other people fighting social justice, and support their work and their art as well is really